Hi, this is Tiffany Koller. I am with the U.S. EPA, Office of Resource Conservation and Recovery. My particular office focuses on, my particular division is working with food organizations to help reduce food waste. So you all have heard some of the statistics before. In my particular office, we've really focused on the waste element of this and really trying to understand what are Americans wasting, what is really going to a landfill. So from what we have seen currently, Americans are wasting about 25% of all food and beverage purchases. And that's just about 21% of all of that food is going to landfill. So 4% goes elsewhere, but almost over 20% of it is going right to a landfill. So what does this really mean? It was something that we were really curious to understand. What could we do? How could we help in that? And when we really took a look at it, it meant that Americans were throwing away almost 35 million tons of food that wasn't really trash, things that people could be eating, that we could be donating. And a lot of what some of my colleagues talked about earlier today about how people didn't understand label dates and those sorts of things, they were just throwing it away. They felt that that was probably the best solution. And, you know, from our standpoint, that's really beyond the fact that we could be feeding hungry people. When it's decomposing in a landfill, food really reduces methane. And our wasted food is contributing to almost 14% of our domestic greenhouse gas emissions. We at EPA knew that we needed to kind of start working on that and figure out what we could do. So we were looking at how could we help? How could we help to solve and improve this problem? We had our food waste hierarchy. Many of you have probably seen our hierarchy, our waste hierarchy, and that's a triangle. For food waste, we have it as an inverted triangle because we want people to really recognize the fact that source reduction is the most important thing that you could be doing. And really, landfilling, whatever your food waste is the least preferable. When we source reduce, we're buying less. We're looking at our inventory. We're recognizing we don't need this, and we could be buying less. Sometimes you buy something and you realize, well, I'm just not going to use it. I thought I was going to, but now I can't. So why not donate? Help feed hungry people. Help feed animals and provide animal feed. And then obviously there are certain things that we just will get to a point of food waste. And at that point, it's much more preferable for us to recycle that and compost it rather than landfilling it. And as you'll see on this slide here, even just small changes make huge differences. Inventorying and buying less, even small changes can save thousands of dollars to an organization. Using composted food scraps improves soil health. One of the things that lots of people hear about is the fact that our soils have been depleted of nutrients that we need. Our compost, which really is something as simple as taking some of your yard trimmings and your orange peels and apple skins, really can make a huge difference in returning valuable resources back to the soil. And even a small percentage of food diverted to hunger relief organizations could feed millions. And with 1 in 7 American households considered to be food insecure, that really could make a large difference. But one of the things that we were trying to figure out, we had this wonderful food hierarchy, and we were trying to figure out, well, what would we do? What are the challenges? What are the barriers around the government helping to reduce food waste? And the 3 things that we identified was outreach, was one of the largest ones of how do we get the word out, why you should reduce food waste, and how to reduce food waste. Where could people find a food donation shelter, or where could they find their local composting facility? Infrastructure. Was the capacity available to compost food waste? Was the capacity there to be able to donate this food? And lastly, measurement. What was the true scope of the problem? We didn't know. How much food was the average organization wasting? From our standpoint, we really wanted to try to get at those restaurants, the grocers, the universities who were wasting the food and really try to understand how much they were over-purchasing, how much food they were wasting. So for us, what we decided we were going to do at EPA was we launched the Sustainable Materials Management Program. The Sustainable Material Management Program is the use and reuse of materials in the most productive and sustainable way across the entire life cycle. Our focus is really on working with organizations to help them use and reuse their materials. Our 3 focus areas within Sustainable Materials Management is Sustainable Food Management, what I'll be talking about today, leading by example federal government. This is really working with our federal government agencies to work on things like recycling, reducing food waste, helping to buy, greener electronics and those sorts of things. And our last focus area has been electronics recycling and really work back programs and things like that, dismantling of electronics, et cetera. The SMM program promotes organizations to make these good decisions about the conserving resources, and it really helps them to manage and reduce their waste, helps them to slow their climate change, and also minimize the environmental impacts of the materials they use within their organizations. For sustainable food management specifically, we created the Food Recovery Challenge. The challenge encourages organizations to reduce the food waste they generate, so change practices to purchase leaner or to minimize waste. Donate the excessive food they have, divert surplus food away from landfills to local hunger relief organizations, and at the last part of it, to compost whatever food scrap and or food waste they may have. Our participants join our program by entering into our database. They will baseline and kind of inventory what they have to understand where they're starting from, and then they will pick one of these activities, and it allows them to then, we track their progress yearly to figure out exactly where they can make those improvements. And a lot of people will start at sort of that simplest thing of saying, I can compost. And as they start composting, they recognize that, well, if I'm composting this much, why can't I donate it? And then once they start donating and they realize, wow, look at how much donations I have, then you start seeing people move up that scale to source reduction, recognizing they could be buying less instead of having to deal with food waste and deal with their waste hauling. So that's sort of obviously one of the bigger ones, is improving their bottom line. It supports their community. It's reducing their environmental footprint. And one of the great things about our challenge is that we're able to recognize our participants through things like press releases, national awards, regional events, et cetera. So we formally launched our Food Recovery Challenge in 2011. To date, we have close to 800 organizations that have joined the challenge. From small entities such as 1515 Restaurant in Boulder, Colorado, to some of our larger food companies such as Del Monte and Nestle, to grocery chains like BJ's Wholesale and Whole Foods, and even to worldwide hotel chains such as Marriott and MGM. And in 2014, we expanded our program to include endorsers. We had heard over the last 3 years that there were lots of people that were out there, associations and churches, and those that weren't necessarily producing food waste themselves, but who wanted to help or who could help, who had some technology that could help. So we were able to launch our endorser program, and that's the organizations that are not producing the food waste themselves, but who can help recruit participants into the challenge, as well as promote the reduction of food waste through their networks. In our first year, our participants reported diversion of 50,000 tons of wasted food, and this was really through their baselining of what they could do and what they were doing. In 2013, just a few years later, our participants have diverted and donated nearly 400,000 tons of wasted food. So in a short 3-year period, we've seen 8 times the amount that our participants were originally reporting, and we're hoping in the next couple of years we'll see 50 times the amount that they had started with. One of the great things is in our last year or so, we've also seen a significant shift from composting to donations to almost 4,000 tons of source reduction, and this is a huge increase, and we're hoping with each year we'll just continue to see that number go up. Lastly, one of the great things that we've been able to do is we've really been able to join forces with the USDA and work on a U.S. food waste challenge. We are working together in our joint efforts, and we're able to reach the entire food supply chain from farm to fork to landfill. And we're allowing all of our members to really be able to set those food waste goals and help in the reduction, and really be able to think about and manage their food waste and understand where it's going and what they could be doing with it. Along with this challenge, we set participant goals for both 2015 and 2020. And in 2014, our joint efforts, we were actually already able to meet our participant goals for 2020. So we're really looking forward to what the future brings. Thank you. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me, or if you have any desire to learn anything more about the Food Recovery Challenge, as well as USDA's food waste efforts, please visit these 2 websites. Thank you.